It is a distinct pleasure to be with you. I look forward to sharing some critical risk management considerations, as well as a specific example that will conclude our discussion. As such, I will essentially divide this module into two portions. The first being material that should set the stage for fundamental, critical thoughts within larger risk management considerations, while the second will concentrate on the growing issue of personnel and organization-related security. The latter part of our discussion is intended to demonstrate two things. The first being the need to build a heightened sense of security into risk management programs and to set the tone for one of the most critical security issues, the safety of your most valuable resource, people. Just in the United States, hundreds of texts have been written regarding safety and risk management. Bird, Head and Horn, Grimaldi and Simons, Hammer, Asphalt, Manuel, Getch, and dozens of others are recognized contributors. They follow the historic icons, Heinrich, Marin Hedges, Peterson, and Haddon, to name just a few. These efforts have created a bridge from the basics of safety and health to program development and management to more complex issues such as specific hazard controls, toxicology, and the role that human behavior plays in managing safety and health. The subject of risk management is more frequently being written about from both the qualitative and quantitative perspective, as well as the financial and operational standpoints. Though all of the historical writings have a common goal, that being a dynamic that is playing out all over the world, that of collateral or allied duty professionals being required to handle a myriad of tasks, including the management of an organization's safety and risk control programs. Sometimes the tasks or functions that this professional is regularly responsible for often have a natural connectivity to safety and risk management. In many other cases, they do not. For those where a natural affinity does not exist, I hope today to bridge some of that gap. The role that many of us occupy, that is, as collateral duty professionals, is a major theme today, especially that in the first part of my talk. The motivating factors for an organization's management activities are widely varied, with moral obligations, economics, and regulatory mandate amongst them. Other factors may differ from organization to organization as a function of the many hazards to which workers and the public are exposed, or more critically, the motivation for managing safety and health may simply be a function of the perception of risk. To some extent, this presentation is designed to help smooth that variability by moving risk issues from perception to reality, with a focus on the real-world issues of security, both organizational and personal. The noted variability in what motivates management to initiate safety and health management activities, or for some inexplicable reason serves to limit their activities, does not modify, 1, the universal and basic need for risk management programs, 2, the special role that allied and collateral duty professionals play in the day-to-day management of such programs, and 3, the fundamental requirements for risk-related programs to identify unsafe conditions and behaviors and to ensure their mitigation. In fact, by creating a risk management culture which functions in spite of variability or practitioner skills, the chances of successful program development and deployment are greatly increased. In essence, regardless of the perception of risk or need, there is an ultimate value in the development of risk management capability and ensuring its perpetuation. Why is this the case? I'd like to reintroduce my favorite quote from Winston Churchill, and perhaps some of you will remember it. He said, "The Americans are a great people. You can always count on them to do the right thing. after they have tried everything else. The Churchill quote is apropos to our topic today and holds specific relevance when considering the many motivating factors surrounding risk management. Churchill was smacking the hand of the U.S. and intoning us to get involved in World War II at the fighting level within the European theater. Until troops were committed to the battlefront, we had attempted economic threats, sanctions, conducted closed-door politicking, engaged in shuttle diplomacy, and generally threatened the aggressors with no success. In the end, the U.S. involvement turned the tide, helped to restore the stability in the theater, and halted Hitler's regime from overrunning England and perhaps the whole of Europe. Clearly, Churchill would have preferred our involvement much, much earlier than it was actually provided. Churchill's quote suggests we did the right thing, but only after attempting other options first. I refer to this as the Churchill paradox. The implications in his quote are historically dramatic. There could have been less loss of life, less destruction of property, and destruction of national treasures, had we not tried several tactics before deploying the one that truly mattered. Organizations take such incremental tactics frequently. The risk management connection to Churchill's quote has everything to do with making an assessment and taking the necessary actions first, not after failed attempts at what might have been easier, perceived to be less costly, or perhaps more organization-friendly. These points of emphasis have specific relevance to the second part of our discussion in this module. I hope you will recognize that relationship. Within the context of safety and risk management, we rarely have the luxury of incrementally building management capability. By taking an incremental approach, the factors that lead to injury, illness, or security-related risk are allowed to continue. By allowing the incremental approach to play out, we are perpetuating the paradox. The right thing, then, is to recognize the human, moral, legal, public, and regulatory obligations for controlling risk and implement the best possible program as quickly as possible. By doing so, we avoid the Churchill paradox. Please note, I did not say develop a perfect program. Even with our finest efforts, all programs must be managed, updated, modified, and just as importantly, maintained. Avoiding the Churchill paradox in risk management should be one of your consistent mantras, if you will. Think of Churchill's quote as a trigger, one which motivates you to not only confront the challenges of building an effective risk management program, but a trigger that motivates you to deploy and maintain that program sooner rather than later. Let me ask a couple of questions, if I may. What's more important, safety or health? Where should you spend your time? Conducting hazard assessments or in training your personnel? The answer is obviously yes to both. What is the driving factor for risk management? Regulatory compliance, cost efficiency, injury management, or labor relations? Of course, they're all driving factors, and you would be hard-pressed to eliminate any from consideration. Each of these factors is important, and none should receive short shrift when developing risk management strategies and tactics. Which tactic is employed first or requires more of your assets will vary. The simple fact is, though, all of the above noted factors and many others must be considered. Deciding which factors in your organization are most critical requires a distillation process. I envision this process as a planning funnel where critical considerations are placed in the top, then analyzed and contrasted, with the most important finding their way out of the funnel spout. These are the risk issues you focus upon first. This defines one of the basic tenets of risk management. It is necessary to extract out the most critical risk issues and then mitigate them. And remember, risk is the nature of something that can cause harm compared to how frequent and how severe the outcomes may be. Of course, successful use of the planning funnel as intended is to help create a safety and health management program, and it's contingent upon the nature and quality of information that's placed into the funnel for analysis to begin with. As you develop and expand the list of what is important, the utility of the funnel as a possible adjunct to planning activities becomes much more robust. If you are thinking about what should go into your planning funnel, consider the following categories that are risks or imply risk. Among them are changes in personnel, mergers and acquisitions, international travel, information transfer, as well as operational risk. These are but a few that spell the need for a review of an organization's risk management program. Understanding how change may modify the challenges of safety and managing risk is crucial to your success. More importantly, the development of tools and processes to recognize organizational and operational change, which portend a change in risk itself, and ensuring concomitant program updates is essential. Deciding what is important to observe for change, then, is a critical first step. This information, then, becomes that which is most useful, as it has undergone a distillation process, and most useful data is then converted to tactical information, which is used to strengthen your risk management program. In another module, we will review one specific area of risk and where a tactical approach can be deployed. The risks we face are ever mutating. They include traditional liability and property risks that insurance companies typically think of, but they have been rapidly expanding beyond these to include global catastrophes such as the 2004 Southeast Asian tsunami, terrorism, and well beyond both of those. How work is organized will continue to change, impacting both psychological and physical stresses to which our workforces are exposed. Other realms of change will include those found within the temporal demands of employment. Ever-mutating organizational structures, such as consolidation, and of course, technological stressors, will continue to modify. These all are risks that need to be recognized and mitigated. As you can see, the spread of risk is tremendous, ranging from personal to organizational, up to and including those risks that reside in the realm of globalization. In large part, managing the issues of change is further complicated by mobile and transient workforces. Thus, the ability to develop and deploy programs that are effective, in spite of the many dynamics noted above, becomes paramount. Think, for example, of the challenges of managing safety and health for a workforce comprised completely of temporary workers. The management challenge rests with developing the capability of not simply recognizing what has changed, but somehow managing that change, all while knowing your employees are being overseen on a daily basis by a manager that is not part of your business. As the safety and health professional becomes more practiced, they will be able to look ahead and project changes that might occur. Thus, they will make essential improvements in their programs long before new hazards and operational risks manifest. If the fundamental nature of something to cause harm, or that which allows an unsafe act or condition to exist, such as the perception of risk, or the inability to implement safety procedures, for example, is not modified or mitigated, those same factors will exist in the future. Your time and energy to manage the outcomes in the form of injuries and illnesses will be required over and over again. It is logical to assume that after considerable time, our ability to recognize and manage the factors that allow a worker to sustain an injury or become ill from a work-related exposure would have gotten much better. Though there have been improvements, significant risk reduction strides will be constantly mandated unless active steps are taken to control factors leading to unsafe acts or conditions. The relevant point here is that the accomplished risk manager builds the capacity to recognize change and interpret hazards and new risks. This is done in order to implement controls before adverse outcomes manifest. Though tremendous advancements in risk management have been made, challenges still lie ahead of us all. Thus, I often refer to risk and safety, as well as safety and health management, as one of the purest of the applied sciences. Risk management tactics must be deployed in organizations on a daily basis. The intent is to suggest that to truly impact adverse safety and health outcomes, one must be willing to roll up their sleeves and get dirty. Improvements in risk rarely come just from those activities while sitting in an office. It is necessary to get out amongst the workers and into the operations in order to experience the physical and psychological stresses employees are under and critically understand why, for example, they get hurt while at work. Doing so is important. You will likely be surprised, for example, to find that what you originally thought to be the cause of an injury or illness was way off target, or perhaps was multifactorial in origin, all while you thought you were in search of a single cause. When we consider risk from a worker safety perspective, the fact that the vast majority of illnesses and injuries are now from unsafe acts presents an interesting risk management challenge. This challenge resides in the effort that is vested with maintaining a safe and healthy work environment. It is infinitely easier to reduce many and eliminate some unsafe conditions. It is much more difficult to ensure that a worker is observing safe work practices and practicing them on a consistent basis. Risk management professionals and those with allied duties for safety and health necessarily wear many hats. As such, available time is precious, and the ability to prioritize efforts, including those within safety and health and risk management, is a trait that must be mastered. Thus, you must be capable of understanding the value of being a doer, a motivator, and an educator, as opposed to someone who simply responds to outcomes. This is the essence of risk management. Looking ahead and creating solutions to risks that have yet to manifest. The battles for safety and health improvements are won in the trenches, not from behind a desk. Further, it becomes essential to prioritize time for activities that are preemptive and proactive, as opposed to simply reactive. You'll find that reaching to that which has already occurred is more time, cost, and labor intensive than the polar opposite. This simply means that any time spent on safety and health management, as long as goals are in place, will be time well spent. From a risk management standpoint, you have many challenges yet to face. In another module, we will look at a particular threat and review it, not only from the threat perspective, but its inclusion into a larger organizational program and from risk management consciousness.